The silence snapped like a twig. "You deaf or just pretending, old lady?" The voice boomed, cutting through the bus like a blade through cloth. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. Even the engine's hum seemed to dip as if the vehicle itself was startled. That was the moment everything shifted. But it didn't start there. Her name was Evelyn Barnes, a proud black woman in her mid-70s. Her warm brown skin carried the grace of many seasons, and her silver-threaded curls were tucked neatly beneath a dark knitted beret. She wore a long charcoal coat that swept just below her knees and soft-soled shoes that spoke of both style and comfort. She moved slowly, not from weakness, but with the care of someone who had carried many burdens over time. Her eyes, sharp, steady, had seen the best and worst of people. Evelyn had boarded the Route 18 Metrolink bus in Maplewood, a modest town in South Carolina where folks knew each other's dogs by name. The sun had barely cleared the rooftops, and a chill lingered in the air like an unfinished sentence. She was heading home from Riverside Community Hospital, where she had stayed overnight. Her granddaughter, a bright young nurse named Jasmine, had just given birth to her first child, a boy named Elijah. The moment Evelyn had held Elijah, his forehead warm against her lips, her knees had forgotten their ache. But now, walking to the bus and stepping up those high, worn steps, the weight of age returned like an old friend. She didn't complain. Evelyn Barnes never complained. Instead, she gave the driver a quiet nod, the kind exchanged between souls who've seen things but don't need to say them aloud. She chose the seat closest to the front door, not to make a statement, not to challenge history, just because it let her stretch her legs a little, and it was near enough to the exit if she needed to move quickly. The air inside the bus was stale with a mix of deodorant, school bag sweat, and the morning's coffee breath. A few students were hunched in the back, whispering into earbuds. A man 2 rows behind her loudly tapped through football highlights on his phone. An older couple near the window whispered softly in Spanish. Life was moving as usual. Until it wasn't. The bus hissed to a stop 3 blocks down. The doors folded open, and in stepped Tyler Brooks. He was in his early 30s, wearing a gray hoodie zipped halfway up, a faded baseball cap pulled low, and jeans that hung just wrong. He didn't smile. Just stalked aboard like he owned the floor. Before even paying, he saw her. "Evelyn." Without hesitation, without a blink of decency, he said it. "You deaf or just pretending, old lady?" "Get in the back, Clara James." It was so loud, so sharp, the entire bus fell still. The guy behind her paused his video. Someone halfway back chuckled, but it was the nervous kind, the one people spit out when they don't know what else to do. Others looked away, suddenly interested in the trees outside or the gum stuck to their sneakers. Evelyn didn't blink, didn't even flinch. She looked up at Tyler slowly, with a gaze like steady firelight, warm, calm, but impossible to ignore. "I'm sitting where I need to sit," she said. Her voice was low, even, but it carried. Every word was a stone in a river. Tyler didn't like that. He moved in closer, standing so near he blocked the aisle completely. "Don't mess with me, Grandma. You think you're some kind of hero? Clara James was like 100 years ago. You don't get a gold medal for being old and stubborn." Evelyn didn't move. The driver didn't say a word. Nobody did. But Evelyn, she was somewhere else now, not on that bus. Not on Harrison Street. She was in the past. In front of a diner where a teenage boy had refused to serve her coffee. In a shoe store that made her try on heels behind the curtain. In her brother's quiet voice when he came home from jail in '63 with bruises he wouldn't explain. This wasn't just a seat. It never had been. She held her purse tighter, though her hands were calm. "I paid the fare, just like you," she said, "and I'm not moving." The silence now thickened. Even the bus engine felt like it was Waiting to hear what would happen next, Tyler's foot tapped. The other one stayed planted. He wanted her to yell, to lash out. He wanted the drama so he could push harder. But Evelyn gave him nothing. He turned, scanning the bus for all eyes. "You all hear her? These people always think the world owes them something," he sneered. "Acting like suffering gives you a free pass." Still, no one moved, except one girl, back row, high school age. Earbuds now dangling over her chest. She looked at Evelyn. Then at Tyler. She didn't speak, but her eyes were sharp. Tyler jabbed a finger toward Evelyn. "Last chance," he said. Evelyn looked up again. This time, deeper, slower. Tyler's voice cracked the air like a gunshot, sudden and jarring. "I said move." It wasn't a request. It was a command, thick with the stench of superiority and contempt. But Evelyn Barnes didn't budge. She didn't even blink. Instead, she looked up, truly looked at him, not past him, not through him, but into him. Her stare didn't scream. It didn't tremble. It simply settled. Heavy and unmoving. There was something ancient in her eyes. Something older than time, deeper than pain. And whatever it was, it rattled Tyler. For a brief, almost imperceptible moment, he shifted just a half step backward, like his instincts sensed something his pride couldn't admit. Her voice came slowly, each word dipped in the weight of memory. "You ever stared down a sheriff who held a baton in one hand and your brother's fate in the other?" she asked. "Ever walked home soaked to the skin in cold rain, 'cause your bus driver said the colored stop was down the block?" He said nothing. She didn't wait for a reply. "You call me Clara James like it's a joke. Like it's shameful." Her voice rose just enough to be clear, not loud. "You think that name makes me small. You don't know what power lives in names like hers." Behind Tyler, someone whispered, "Damn." A single word, but it held the tone of awe. The swagger Tyler had walked on with was bleeding out. His shoulders twitched, his chest puffed, then deflated. But pride, that fragile beast, clung on. "Don't try to play the victim," he snapped, voice louder now, aimed not just at Evelyn, but at the whole bus. "You people always got some sob story. Always digging up history like it makes you special." Movement behind him. A seat creaked. Tyler didn't see her. But Evelyn did. She'd noticed her earlier, a woman in her 60s, short silver hair, a tan coat with clean lines, denim jeans cuffed at the ankle. She looked like she'd just come from the library or a flower shop. Her name was Carolyn Miles, and when she stood, the whole mood inside the bus rippled. Her steps were measured, not hesitant, not hurried. She stopped a few feet behind Tyler, chin lifted, posture straight as a fence post. "Young man," she said. Her tone was neither soft nor harsh. It was cool. Final. That's enough. Tyler spun around, startled like someone had slapped the back of his neck. "Mind your business, lady." Carolyn didn't blink. "It is my business," she said firmly. "My name is Carolyn Miles, and I've sat on this bus route since 1978. I've seen women like Evelyn treated with silence too long. But not today." People turned. The driver, previously stiff behind the wheel, shifted slightly and watched in the rear view. Tyler scoffed. "What are you, some kind of social justice grandma?" "No," Carolyn replied. "I'm someone who knows what decency looks like. And this right here, this is the opposite." He opened his mouth to throw more words, but something in Carolyn's expression made him stall. Her stare didn't waver. There was no hate in it. Just disappointment, steel. Then, from the back of the bus, click. A young man with close-cropped dreadlocks and a navy peacoat raised his phone. "You're Liv," he said plainly, as if reading the weather. The red recording icon glowed like a spotlight. Tyler froze. His eyes flicked to the phone, then to Carolyn, then back to Evelyn still seated, still motionless. Then back again. "Get that thing off me." He barked. "Nope," the man replied calmly. Carolyn stepped in closer, not aggressively, just with quiet resolve. You were fine yelling in front of all of us. Let the rest of the world see what that looks like too. Evelyn hadn't moved a muscle. Her hands remained folded in her lap. But the silence around her had changed. It no longer felt passive. It was electric, protective, the kind of silence that grows teeth. And just before Tyler could gather another insult, another voice cut in. Female, steady, cutting. You got something to say, sweetheart? Tyler jerked around as if challenged to a duel. She stood in the middle aisle now. Tall, slim, maybe late 20s or early 30s. Her hair was pulled back tightly into a neat bun. She wore a forest green hoodie that read Greenview State University. And she held herself with the calm of someone used to being underestimated. Her name was Jennifer Dorsey, and her voice was clear as glass. I said, she repeated, you don't get to talk to her like that. Not on this bus, not today. Tyler scoffed again, this time more defensive than cocky. I'll talk however I want. Sure, Jennifer replied, but being loud doesn't make you right. He scanned the bus again. People weren't just watching now. They were locked in, present. A quiet shift had happened. The atmosphere had turned. Jennifer crossed her arms and held his stare. My grandfather marched in Selma. My mother was spat on during desegregation. You don't get to reduce all that to a punchline. Carolyn moved slightly to flank him from one side. Jennifer from the other. It was subtle, unspoken. The space around Tyler was growing tighter. Evelyn remained in her seat. Still, but the entire bus spoke for her. That's when Tyler went for the classic pivot. He pointed at the phones. This is harassment. You don't even know me. She's filming me. He's filming me. I should call the cops. Carolyn smiled. Please do. I'll help you spell your name for them. Jennifer added, you wanted an audience, right? Now you've got one. Tyler looked toward the front, searching for backup. The driver, Marcus Hill, mid-50s, lean, wearing a navy cap stitched with Maplewood Transit across the brim, finally stood up. He calmly reached for the radio, pressed the button, and announced loud enough for the entire bus to hear. Dispatch. This is Route 18. I have a non-compliant passenger. Requesting transit officers at the next stop, Maple and Brookview. The words dropped heavy into the stillness. Everyone heard them. Marcus didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply drew a line in concrete. He'd driven through rainstorms, mechanical failures, even once helped deliver a baby on the back seat. But nothing tested his patience like this. His voice was calm but sharp. Sir, you've got two options. Sit down or get off. I'm not moving this bus with this going on. Tyler turned like he'd been betrayed. She started it, he shouted, pointing to Evelyn. Marcus shook his head. Nobody started anything but you. There's a camera above your head, and I've already called for transit security. So either you leave on your own, or wait for them to escort you. Tyler hesitated. He looked around. The teenager near the back still had her phone up. Jennifer still stood firm. Carolyn looked like she'd just remembered another line she was ready to say. And Evelyn? Evelyn hadn't moved an inch. Jennifer stepped slightly forward, not toward Tyler, but toward the exit. But her movement alone made him shuffle back. He had entered like a storm. Now he was just weathered. Jennifer paused next to Evelyn, her presence like a steady shield. You okay, ma'am? She asked, her voice low, but full of warmth. Evelyn gave a single nod, calm and unshaken. Don't let people like that ruin your day, Jennifer added. Evelyn glanced at her, then spoke with a quiet strength that filled the space around them. Sweetheart, I've had people like that ruin my decade. This, she tilted her chin toward Tyler. This is a pebble. Somewhere near the back, a chuckle slipped out. It wasn't mocking. It was admiration wrapped in disbelief. Tyler stood frozen for a moment longer. His mouth twitched like it wanted to shape one more insult, but nothing came. His bravado was fading fast, eaten away by the silence that now surrounded him. But it wasn't just silence anymore. Tyler's eyes darted to the window, then back toward the front. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I didn't do anything wrong." Marcus didn't reply. He sat with both hands resting on the steering wheel, gaze forward, body composed. The doors stayed closed. The engine idled. A car honked impatiently. Behind them, Carolyn crossed her arms again and leaned slightly forward. "You had your say," she said, voice cool as ever. "Now it's time to leave." Jennifer returned to her seat beside Evelyn, giving one last glance out the window, scanning for approaching authorities. The teenager with the earbuds leaned toward a classmate, whispering quickly. At the back, a man in glasses silently raised his phone and started filming too. Tyler looked around, eyes flicking from face to face. His voice cracked with a weak laugh. "Come on, y'all. Are we seriously pretending this is a big deal? I made a joke." Jennifer turned toward him, brows lifted. "That wasn't a joke," she said. "That was hate trying to wear a funny mask," he scoffed, waving a hand. "She's sitting where she wants, isn't she?" No one stopped her. "You tried to humiliate her," Jennifer shot back. "You thought no one would say anything. That's not the same thing." He opened his mouth again, but just then, the lights of a white and blue transit vehicle flashed in the front window. The SUV pulled up slowly, doors creaked open. Marcus stood, stepped down to meet the officers. Two of them climbed on, one black, one Latino. Both wore gray uniforms, body cams blinking red. "Afternoon," the taller officer said, clipboard in hand. "Which one's the problem?" Half the bus pointed at once. Tyler threw up his arms, exasperated. "This is crazy. I didn't touch anyone." Marcus calmly handed over a printed sheet. "Here's the incident log. Verbal aggression, racial provocation, obstruction. It's all there." The officer scanned the page, then turned to Tyler. "Sir, you'll need to come with us. I didn't break any laws." "No," the officer replied. "But you broke every decent rule of how people treat each other in public. You want to argue, do it outside. You're holding up the route." Tyler's body went rigid, his jaw clenched. He looked to the crowd one last time, begging for sympathy, for rescue. Nothing. Even the guy who had laughed earlier wasn't meeting his gaze. "Fine," Tyler snapped. "Y'all are gonna regret this when it goes viral." The officer almost smiled. Too late. It already did. Tyler stepped off, flanked by both officers. The doors hissed shut behind him, and just like that, the tension broke like steam from a vent. The bus didn't celebrate, it exhaled. Marcus climbed back into his seat, adjusted his mirror, and looked toward Evelyn. "You ready to keep moving, ma'am?" Evelyn gave a gentle nod. "Thank you," he smiled. "No, ma'am, thank you." The engine purred to life, and the bus rolled forward. The quiet was no longer heavy, it was thoughtful. Jennifer leaned back in her seat, letting her body settle. Carolyn smoothed her coat. A kid in the back leaned toward his friend and whispered, "That was wild." Outside, people had started to gather on the sidewalk, curious faces pressed toward the tinted windows. Tyler stood with arms crossed, beside the transit officers. His eyes darted toward the bus, like he was trying to see through the glare. He wasn't yelling anymore. He looked like someone realizing the story was no longer his to tell. Across the street, a young woman named Ariana had caught most of the incident on livestream. She had been walking home when she noticed the commotion. She was just walking home from Sweet Crumb's bakery, iced tea in one hand, earbuds in, phone in the other. It had been a long shift. She was zoning out, watching the sidewalk stretch ahead, when she noticed the bus sitting oddly still near the curb. She slowed down. Something felt off. A few folks were clustered outside, not boarding, just watching. Then she heard yelling. Without thinking, Ariana opened her camera app and hit Go Live. Within moments, her viewership shot past 2,000. She turned her phone toward the still bus and whispered, "This man just told a 70-something-year-old black woman to move to the back. He actually said get in the back, Clara James, on a city bus." In 2025, the comment feed erupted. Expose him. God bless the women standing up. Tell Ms. Evelyn she's got folks behind her from Alabama to New York. Inside the bus, a heavy quiet held everyone. Not shocked silence, something deeper. Like they were all sitting in a moment they'd remember for years. No one looked at their phones. No one looked away. People stayed alert, still, like something sacred had passed through. Jennifer, still beside Evelyn, leaned close and murmured, "You want to say anything?" He's out there pacing like he just got caught with answers on his sleeve during a final exam. Evelyn let out a dry chuckle, barely more than breath. Men like that? They always think they're the ones being wronged. Like the room turning. Cold on them is everyone else's fault. She straightened a little in her seat. They only feel small when the crowd stops clapping. From behind, a young man in a navy hoodie leaned forward, his voice tentative. "Ma'am, I wanted to say thank you. My grandmother passed recently. She'd have stood up too." Evelyn gave him a nod filled with grace. "Then keep her spirit in the room with you, especially when it gets hard." Carolyn, seated now near the front, turned her head toward the bus window. Tyler was still outside, talking fast with the officers, arms flailing, face tightening. "He doesn't know what accountability feels like," she said softly. From the front, Marcus joined in, his voice even and firm. "Too many think being rude is just free speech. But cruelty in disguise is still cruelty." Then another voice, this one coming from the middle of the bus. A young woman, maybe in her early 20s, with rose-pink hair and an oversized flannel wrapped around her shoulders. She held a tablet against her knees. "My mom teaches middle school," she said. "They just finished a unit on the Freedom Riders. Half her class thought stuff like this didn't happen anymore. I'm definitely telling her about this." Jennifer nodded with gentle urgency. "Then tell her everything. Tell her we didn't. Stay quiet." Outside, Tyler's volume had risen again, gesturing wildly. The officers didn't argue. One calmly scribbled on a clipboard. The other simply pointed toward the sidewalk. "You made your choice," he said flatly. "Now take responsibility." The door closed with a hydraulic hiss. Tyler stalked away, muttering loudly, his voice trying to catch someone's sympathy. But there were no ears left listening. Inside, Ariana caught every step of his retreat. She turned the camera back toward the bus, panning gently. "Remember his face if you want," she said to the live audience. "But more importantly, remember hers." Her lens rested on Evelyn, profile calm, posture proud, eyes ahead. She didn't look like a fighter. She looked like someone who had already survived more battles than this one. No one inside clapped. No one cheered. They simply sat with what had happened, breathing in the moment. Evelyn turned to Jennifer, her voice quiet. "How's your grandfather?" Jennifer's expression softened. "He passed last year. Parkinson's, but he would have smiled watching all this." Evelyn reached over and gave her hand a light squeeze. "Then we keep showing up, for people like him. For the next ones." Now that Tyler was gone, the air in the bus didn't feel empty. It felt awake. As the wheels rolled past Maple and Brookview, the city outside returned to its usual rhythm. Fluorescent signs flickered. Teens on bikes zipped by corner stores. Neon open signs blinked lazily in cracked shop windows. Inside, no one said much, but they didn't need to. Evelyn leaned her head against the glass, eyes not closed, but distant, as if recalling a memory older than the moment, older than the city itself. Jennifer sat beside her, arms crossed gently, her phone face down. Carolyn had returned to her seat near the front, smoothing the edge of her scarf. Toward the back, the teenager with the sketchpad now had it open, drawing softly. With a pencil. Then, breaking the quiet like a question in church, "Were you scared?" All eyes turned. It was a little boy, no more than 9. His legs didn't reach the floor. He sat beside his mother, who instantly looked mortified. "Jalen, no," she whispered. Evelyn raised a hand gently. "It's all right." She turned toward the boy. "Was I scared?" she repeated. "No, not scared." She gave it a moment, then added, "I was angry, tired. Not tired like you get at bedtime. Tired of people thinking it's okay to treat others like they matter less." Jalen nodded slowly. He didn't smile. He just absorbed it. "But what if he hurt you?" he asked, voice soft, but brave. Evelyn didn't blink. "Then someone else would have stood up," she said. "Just like they did today." Jalen's mother blinked away tears. She looked at Evelyn and mouthed, "Thank you." Evelyn simply smiled. And outside, the world kept moving, and so did the bus. The ride continued, the hum of the engine blending with the silence inside. They passed a mural painted on the outer wall of a worn-down community center. Bright colors stretched across. Concrete. Carolyn turned in her seat, twisting slightly to face Evelyn. "Miss Evelyn, may I ask you something?" Evelyn nodded. "Of course. Why didn't you yell at him?" Evelyn exhaled, not in frustration, not from exhaustion, but from depth. "Because I've done enough yelling in my life." "And you know what I learned?" Carolyn leaned forward, listening. "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do," Evelyn said, "is nothing. Just stay still. Let people hang themselves with their own words." Carolyn nodded slowly. "You were never alone on that bus." "I know," Evelyn replied. "That's what made all the difference." 2 rows back, a young man leaned into the aisle, his tone honest and raw. "It's messed up we still gotta deal with stuff like this. I mean, it's 2025. "It is messed up," Jennifer said. "But every time someone speaks up, even just one voice, it shifts things. Inch by inch." From the driver's seat, Marcus added, raising his voice just enough to be heard, "I've got 2 daughters. If they ever find themselves in a moment like this, I hope the people around them do what y'all did today." No one clapped. No one cheered. But they all looked at one another, a bus full of strangers now bound by something more real than routine. At the next stop, the doors opened with a sigh. Carolyn stood, gathering her things. As she reached the steps, she paused and turned back. "I've lived a long time," she said, eyes scanning the faces. "But today felt like a good one." Evelyn raised her hand and waved. The doors shut gently behind Carolyn. The bus moved again, rolling forward through the last stretch of daylight. Evelyn turned to Jennifer. "Where you headed?" "Library," she smiled. "Gotta write a paper on generational trauma." "Pretty sure I just found my opening paragraph," Evelyn chuckled. "Write the truth, baby. That's all we've got left that can still move hearts." But Evelyn wasn't going straight home. She had one more stop. The sun had dipped lower, casting golden light across the pavement. The city glowed with that soft amber hue only late afternoon brings. Evelyn stepped off the bus at 14th and Reynolds. The air smelled of warm concrete, dust, and distant grilling meat. She didn't turn right toward home, she turned left. She passed a corner store whose owner still called her Miss E, even though she hadn't shopped there in years. Her feet moved slowly, not from pain, but from purpose. They knew the way. 3 blocks down, nestled beside a rusted fence and a modest playground, was a mural. It had been commissioned years ago by the city. A towering painting that splashed color against the gray. Clara James sat near the center, hands folded in her lap, eyes gazing forward, serene, firm, alive. Evelyn crossed the street and sat on the bench facing it. She didn't stare long. She didn't need to. She had come here many times before. This bench had carried her through quiet mornings and long evenings. She used to come with her husband, back when his laugh was still rich and his memory sharp. He'd talk about the army like it was a tale book. Now it was just her. She leaned back. "You'd think we'd be further by now," she whispered. "You sat so we could stand. And still here we are fighting for our seats." She opened her purse and pulled out a small folded envelope. Inside was a photo. Her granddaughter Jasmine holding baby Elijah, just hours after he was born. Evelyn gazed at the image for a long time, then looked back up at Rosa. "I didn't move today," she said softly. "Not because I wanted trouble, not even for pride. I just couldn't make myself shrink." A man pushing the stroller passed nearby. He gave her a polite nod. Evelyn nodded back. "Someone once told me you don't change people's hearts by shouting over them," she continued. "You do it by standing still, by showing them what dignity looks like when it refuses to bend." She slid the photo back into her purse. Then she looked at Clara one last time. "You weren't alone back then," Evelyn murmured. "And I wasn't alone today. I guess that counts for something." She rose slowly. Her body felt the weight of the day. Her spirit did not. Across the street, children climbed on monkey bars. A little girl with big curly hair and a pink jacket pointed at the mural. "Daddy," she asked, "who's that?" Her father knelt beside her. "That's Clara James, baby. She helped change the world." The girl looked up. "Can I do that too?" Evelyn smiled to herself and turned away, walking toward home. If you're hearing this, if this story reached you, don't let it stop here. Speak up, show up, sit where you belong, and help others do the same, because real strength lives in quiet resistance. And it always has. True courage doesn't always roar, it sits still. It holds its ground, and it speaks when silence is no longer an option. When dignity refuses to bend, even the quietest person can shift the entire room. Change doesn't always begin with a march. Sometimes it begins with someone refusing to move. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of the strength and stillness, the power of one voice, and the beauty of standing together, don't let it stop here. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories that honor everyday bravery and the quiet strength that shapes our world.